You think you know Japan? Cherry blossoms, samurai, sushi, anime. But what if I told you? Some of Japan's most incredible stories don't walk on two legs. They fly. From birds that inspired poetry and folklore to raptors bigger than your dog, Japan's skies are filled with creatures most people have never even heard of. Some are elegant, some are haunting, some look like they came straight out of a Studio Ghibli movie. And the best part? Every one of them is real. In this video, we're diving into 15 rare and beautiful birds of Japan. Not just because they're stunning, but because each one tells a story about the land, the culture, and the wild soul of this island nation. Whether you're a birder, a Japanophile, or just someone who likes weird and wonderful nature, trust me, this is for you. Let's start with a bird so sacred, it's been folded into 1,000 origami cranes and still can't quite be captured. Our journey begins with a bird so elegant, it might as well be Japan's unofficial spirit animal. This is the red-crowned crane. In Japanese, it's called tancho, and in traditional folklore, it's said to live for 1,000 years. You'll find its image on ancient scrolls, wedding kimonos, coins, and even airline logos. Why? Because this bird isn't just beautiful. It means something. It represents longevity, loyalty, and grace. Standing nearly 5 feet tall with a wingspan of over 7 feet, it moves like a calligraphy brush gliding across rice paper. And when two cranes dance, it's not just a mating display, it's poetry in motion. They bow, leap, and spiral in perfect harmony. It's like ballet, if ballet had feathers and could fly. These cranes once ranged all over Japan, but now they're mostly found in the snowy wetlands of eastern Hokkaido, especially in winter, where they stand out like ink on white parchment. In the 20th century, they were believed to be extinct in Japan, until a small, surviving group was rediscovered. Thanks to intense conservation efforts, their numbers have rebounded, but they're still considered endangered globally. It's the kind of bird you don't just see. You remember. The next time you fold an origami crane, just know, there's a real bird out there living in frozen marshes, dancing through the snow and reminding Japan and the world that beauty is worth protecting. If the red-crowned crane is Japan's soul, then this next bird might just be its wild heart. Meet the green pheasant, known locally as the kiji. It's actually the official national bird of Japan, which is kind of wild, considering how few people outside the country even know it exists. At first glance, you might mistake it for a regular pheasant, until the sunlight hits it. That's when its feathers explode into an iridescent display of emerald green, deep purple, and shimmering bronze. It's like someone took a basic bird and ran it through a samurai armor filter. The males are especially striking, with long tails, blood-red facial wattles, and a proud, alert stance. They're the kind of bird that always looks like it's about to deliver a scroll to the emperor. Females, on the other hand, are more muted, soft browns and grays, perfect for nesting in tall grasses, hidden from predators. You'll find green pheasants throughout Honshu, Shikoku, and Kyushu, especially in farmlands and grasslands, where they thrive in the patchwork of rural Japan. They're not just beautiful, they're survivors. These birds have adapted to a changing landscape, often seen strutting along rice fields or darting into hedges when startled. Culturally, they're everywhere in Japanese lore, appearing in folk tales, woodblock prints, and even in Momotaro, the legendary tale of the peach boy who's accompanied by a monkey, a dog, and yes, a pheasant. Despite their national status, green pheasants don't get the global love they deserve. Maybe it's because they don't migrate, or maybe because they blend into their environment too well. But take one good look when the light hits just right, and you'll wonder why we ever overlooked them. Because in that flash of metallic green and crimson red, you're not just seeing a bird. You're seeing a living emblem of Japan's rural spirit. You don't always have to see a bird for it to become unforgettable. Sometimes, it's the sound that sticks with you. And if you've ever walked through a Japanese garden in early spring, there's a good chance you've already met this next bird, even if you didn't know its name. This is the Japanese bush warbler, or as it's known in Japan, uguisu. At first glance, it's nothing flashy. Olive brown feathers, small frame, the kind of bird that disappears the second you blink. But when it sings, oh, that's when the magic happens. Its call is one of the most iconic sounds in Japan. A soft, rising hu-hokikyo. Gentle, echoing, and unmistakably Japanese. That song has inspired poets, monks, emperors, and it's still used today in everything from TV shows to train station chimes. In haiku and tanka poetry, the warbler is a symbol of spring, often paired with cherry blossoms, representing both the arrival of new life and the fleeting beauty of it all. Despite its fame, the bird itself is notoriously shy. It hides deep in the underbrush, calling from the shadows like a little forest ghost. You might stand there for 10 minutes, hearing it crystal clear, and never catch a single glimpse. But maybe that's part of its charm. In a world obsessed with seeing, the Japanese bush warbler reminds us to stop and listen, because sometimes the most beautiful things aren't meant to be chased, they're meant to be felt. This next bird doesn't wear bright colors. It doesn't sing an iconic spring song. It just coos, softly, slowly, like a lullaby made of fog. Meet the Oriental turtle dove, a bird that feels less like a wild creature and more like a quiet memory from a dream. You'll find them almost everywhere in Japan: parks, shrines, temple gardens, always calmly walking across gravel paths or perched on mossy branches. Their look is understated: dusty brown and ash gray feathers, with a delicate pattern across their neck that almost looks like hand stitching. But their voice? That's what lingers. A deep, slow, echoing coo that sounds almost mournful. Hoo. Hoo hoo. It's the kind of sound that makes you stop in the middle of a quiet morning and feel like you've been transported to another time. In old Japanese poetry, this dove's call was often linked to loneliness, longing, and impermanence. You'd hear it in poems from traveling monks or warriors far from home. Today, it still shows up in anime, ambient soundtracks, and Zen garden recordings. Not as a symbol of sadness exactly, but as a gentle reminder of silence, space, and reflection. It's not the flashiest bird in the forest, but that's exactly why it fits so perfectly into Japan's philosophy of nature, where stillness is not empty, it's full of presence. The Oriental turtle dove isn't here to impress you. It's here to remind you to breathe. Tiny, bright, hyperactive, the kind of bird that refuses to sit still, like it's had 3 matcha lattes before 7 a.m. This is the Japanese white-eye, or majiro in Japanese. And if you've ever seen a photo of cherry blossoms with a bird in the frame, odds are it was this one. With its olive green back, yellow throat, and signature white eye ring, this bird looks like someone painted a lemon and then gave it eyeliner. Small? Yes, barely 4 inches long, but endlessly busy. You'll see them zipping between plum blossoms, hanging upside down, or sticking their beak into flower buds like they're late for a meeting. They feed on nectar, fruit, and tiny insects, and they're social, often found in little flocks, chattering away like gossiping old friends. Majiro have been part of Japanese visual culture for centuries, often painted in ukiyo-e woodblock prints, or featured in springtime postcards and modern anime. What's interesting is that even though they're so common in Japan, they're often overlooked. Too small, too fast, too ordinary. But when you really stop and watch one for a minute, especially against a backdrop of cherry blossoms, it's like nature turned up the saturation just to celebrate spring. In some ways, the Japanese white-eye is the perfect metaphor for life in Japan. Small moments of joy, speed, color, and fleeting beauty, all packed into a tiny, relentless package. Blink, and you might miss it. But take a breath, and it might be the most joyful thing you see all day. Now we're heading north, where the winters are long, the rivers are frozen, and the forests are so quiet you can hear snowfall. Deep in Hokkaido, Japan's wildest island, lives a creature so rare, so massive, it almost feels like a forest spirit. Meet the Blakiston's fish owl, the largest owl in the world. Standing over 2 feet tall, with a 6-foot wingspan, this bird looks less like an animal and more like a boss battle. Its eyes are massive and bright yellow, staring through you like it already knows your secrets. With thick, shaggy feathers and feathery horns that stick out like wet hair, it's perfectly built for cold nights and icy hunts. Unlike most owls, this one doesn't go after mice or rabbits. It hunts fish. It perches silently over mountain streams, watching with laser focus, then pounces with talons sharp enough to pierce through ice. And when it flies, it barely makes a sound, just a gust of wind, and it's gone. These owls are so rare that many Japanese people have never seen one in the wild. In fact, they were once thought to be almost extinct in Japan, until conservationists began protecting their old-growth forest habitat. Today, there are estimated to be fewer than 200 in Japan. But in Ainu culture, the indigenous people of Hokkaido, the fish owl is sacred. They call it Kotan Kor Kamui, which means God of the village. And when you look into its eyes, it's easy to understand why. It's not just a bird. It's the silent guardian of Japan's frozen north. Let's run. All right. If the last bird was a wise forest elder, this one is a straight-up forest ghost. Meet the Japanese Paradise Flycatcher. Long name, longer tail. This bird looks like something out of a fantasy movie. Deep violet-black feathers, a slightly crested head, and a pair of tail streamers so long they flutter behind it like a ribbon in the wind. The males, especially, are absurdly elegant. You could watch them fly in slow motion and swear it was CGI. But don't let the beauty fool you. These birds are tough to spot. They nest in dense, deciduous forests, often in shadowy areas, and they're fast, darting between branches with a kind of controlled chaos. Their call is soft and melancholic, a whisper more than a song. Something between a sigh and a secret. Japanese people sometimes call them sankocho, which translates to three lights bird, referring to the sun, moon, and stars. Pretty poetic for a flycatcher. They're summer visitors, migrating from Southeast Asia, and are usually only seen between May and August. But when they arrive, birders go into full detective mode, just to catch a glimpse of that flowing tail in flight. Sadly, like many of Japan's forest dwellers, the Japanese Paradise Flycatcher is near threatened due to habitat loss. But if you're lucky enough to see one, it feels less like spotting a bird, and more like witnessing something sacred. In motion, they're grace personified. In stillness, they vanish. They don't just fly, they haunt the canopy. And if you blink too long, they're already gone. If you ever get lost in a Japanese forest, just stop and listen. Hear that rhythmic tapping in the distance? That's not a drum. That's nature's percussionist. The Japanese green woodpecker. Known locally as Iogera, this bird brings the beat to Japan's mountain forests. With bright green feathers, a red crown, and a black mustache stripe, it looks like someone dressed a bird in moss and dipped its head in paint. It's a medium-sized woodpecker, about 12 inches long, and it's one of the few species endemic to Japan, meaning you won't find it anywhere else. They're cavity nesters, drilling homes into old trees with absolute focus. When they're not hammering bark, they let out a loud, laughing call. Kyo kyo kyo! It echoes through the woods like someone shouting from a shrine. Culturally, Iogera aren't as famous as cranes or pheasants, but in rural Japan, their call is a familiar part of spring and summer. They often show up in children's picture books, school songs, and even in old countryside legends about forest spirits and talking trees. Unlike some of their more aggressive cousins, the Japanese green woodpecker is relatively shy, preferring quiet, mature forests with plenty of deadwood. Unfortunately, that kind of habitat is disappearing fast. So hearing one these days is like finding a rare vinyl record in the forest. Scratchy, soulful, and a little bit magical. They may not soar through the skies with long tails or flash neon colors, but when the trees start knocking, you'll know who's home. Some birds are flashy, others are subtle. But this next one, it walks the forest like it owns the place. Meet the copper pheasant, one of Japan's most secretive and stunning native birds. You won't find this bird in Tokyo or Kyoto. You'll have to go deep into the misty forests of Honshu, Shikoku, or Kyushu, where moss covers the stones, and the only sound is the crunch of leaves beneath your boots. Males are breathtaking. Long, flowing tails, deep chestnut and bronze feathers that shimmer like hammered metal, and a look of quiet confidence, like a noble from another era. Females, as usual, are more reserved, brown, camouflaged, and quiet, but no less elegant in their own way. Copper pheasants are endemic to Japan, nowhere else on Earth. And unlike the more social green pheasant, these birds are shy, solitary, and rarely seen. They forage low to the ground, picking through leaves for insects, seeds, and the occasional snack of berries. Their call? A sharp, piercing "kyui" that echoes once, then fades into silence. In Japanese tradition, the copper pheasant isn't as well known as its green cousin, but it carries a kind of mythic weight. The bird of hidden beauty, of forests untouched. Hunters once prized its feathers, and artists often painted it as a symbol of elusive grace. Today, their populations are declining due to habitat loss and overhunting in the past. But conservationists are working to protect them. If you ever see one, consider yourself lucky. It's not just a bird, it's a living antique, a piece of wild Japan that refuses to be tamed. After the rare and regal pheasants, let's meet someone a little smaller, but no less important. Say hello to the varied tit, or as it's called in Japan, Yamagara. At just under 5 inches long, this little bird punches way above its weight in charm. With its black hood, white cheeks, chestnut belly, and bold eyes, it kind of looks like it's wearing a superhero mask, or maybe a tiny tuxedo. You can find it in forests all over Japan, hopping through branches, doing acrobatics on twigs, and giving out sharp, cheerful calls like it's narrating its own adventure. But here's the fun part. Varied tits are smart. Like really smart. In traditional Japanese folklore, they were thought to be messengers of the mountain gods. There are even old Shinto rituals where priests would offer nuts or seeds to the bird, and then interpret its actions as divine signs. Think of it as the forest version of a fortune cookie. These birds are also known for trusting humans. With time and patience, they can learn to take seeds from your hand. It's not uncommon to see one flutter down to a hiker's outstretched palm in the mountains. That connection between people and bird, nature, and tradition is exactly what makes the varied tit special. In some regions, they're even carved into iema, wooden prayer plaques hung at shrines, symbolizing guidance, wisdom, and a gentle spirit. So no, they're not flashy. They don't migrate or sing opera, but they do something much rarer. They build a relationship with the land and with us. And really, isn't that what Japan is all about? Let's be honest, some birds are cute, some are mysterious, and some just look like they could steal your lunch and dare you to stop them. This is the Steller's sea eagle, with a wingspan of up to 8 feet and weighing almost 20 pounds. It's one of the largest eagles on the planet. Think bald eagle, but with an upgrade and a bigger attitude. Its massive yellow beak is shaped like a cliff, sharp, thick, and clearly not for show. Its feathers are jet black with white shoulders and tail, making it look like it's always wearing a military overcoat. Native to Russia's Far East, these birds migrate to northern Japan in the winter, especially to Hokkaido, where the sea ice rolls in and the fishing gets good. Watching one of these beasts swoop down over a frozen river, grab a fish the size of a football, and fly off like it owns the sky. Yeah, it's unforgettable. Despite their power, they're surprisingly quiet, communicating with hoarse croaks and the occasional bark-like cry. For birdwatchers, they're the crown jewel of a winter trip to Japan. People come from all over the world just to catch a glimpse, often aboard boats cruising through the drift ice. But their population is small, and like many apex predators, they're sensitive to changes in climate and food availability. So while they might look like unstoppable forces of nature, they're also vulnerable giants. Seeing one in the wild is a mix of awe and humility, a reminder that even the fiercest creatures need balance to survive. In Japan, they don't symbolize elegance or poetry. They represent raw power, northern wildness, and the brutal grace of nature at its biggest and boldest. At first glance, this next bird looks normal. A basic seagull, right? But give it a second. Wait until it opens its mouth, and then, meow. Yes, this bird sounds like a cat. Meet the black-tailed gull, a common sight along Japan's coasts, especially in places like Enoshima, Miyajima, and the rocky shores of northern Honshu. These gulls aren't rare, but they are iconic. With gray wings, white body, black-tipped tail, and yellow bill with a red spot, they're easy to recognize, especially once they start vocalizing. Their mew call is so distinct that locals call them umineko, which literally means sea cat. And honestly, it fits. They strut around docks like they own the place, eye your food like they paid for it, and bicker with each other constantly. But they're not just freeloaders. Black-tailed gulls actually play an important role in coastal ecosystems, cleaning up scraps, chasing off pests, and even helping track fish movements. In Japanese culture, they've shown up in everything from ukiyo-e prints to slice-of-life anime, often adding a bit of seaside ambience or comic relief. One famous spot is Kabushima Shrine, where thousands of gulls nest each year. And yes, it's considered good luck if one blesses you from above. Just wear a hat. So no, they're not rare, regal, or endangered. But they are uniquely Japanese and way more entertaining than your average seagull. Because in a country that respects even the smallest details of nature, even a squawking, fish-thieving, cat-sounding gull gets to be a star. If Mother Nature ever designed a bird just to show off, this would be it. Say hello to the Mandarin duck, arguably the most outrageously dressed bird in East Asia. The males? They've got bright orange sails on their backs, iridescent greens and purples, and a bill so red it looks like it was painted with lacquer. Honestly, they look less like birds and more like characters from a watercolor dream. You'll find them gliding across quiet ponds and temple gardens, tucked between maple leaves and reflections of stone lanterns. Even though they're native to China, they've long been part of Japanese landscapes and symbolism. In fact, Japan embraced them centuries ago, not just for their beauty, but for what they represent. Love, loyalty, lifelong partnership. In East Asian folklore, Mandarin ducks are said to mate for life. If you see a pair together, it's a symbol of unbreakable love. Kind of like swans in Western culture, but with a bolder wardrobe. They appear in wedding art, poetry, and even kimono patterns, often gliding side by side across ink brush paintings. Despite the romantic image, they're also quite practical. They nest in tree cavities near water, and their ducklings jump from great heights to follow mom on day one. Brave and beautiful. In Japan today, they're not extremely rare, but they're treasured whenever spotted, especially in autumn, when their colors mirror the falling leaves. So the next time you think beauty is only skin deep, remember the Mandarin duck. It's bold, elegant, loyal, and it brings art to life with every ripple. Okay, this next bird doesn't have neon feathers. It doesn't sing beautiful songs, but it does something a little creepy. Meet the Eurasian Wryneck, a bird that can twist its head almost 180 degrees, hiss like a snake, and stare at you like it knows your darkest secrets. Charming, right? In Japan, it's known as arisaka, or sometimes jinx bird, and in older folklore, it was believed to have magical powers, especially the power to curse or control love. Why? Because of its name, Wryneck, from the twisting motion, and the way it writhes its body when threatened. Imagine a little brown bird, turning its head like it's auditioning for The Exorcist. People in ancient Japan and Europe alike saw this and thought, yep, definitely cursed. But weirdness aside, the Eurasian Wryneck is actually part of the woodpecker family. Though you'd never guess it. It doesn't peck trees. It doesn't look like a woodpecker. Instead, it prefers ant colonies, using its long, sticky tongue to lap up insects like a feathered anteater. In Japan, it's a rare summer visitor, seen mostly in quiet forests and shrubby clearings. And if you see one, congrats. You've just met one of nature's most underrated oddballs. It might not win any beauty contests, but in terms of personality, this bird's got all the mystery, myth, and misunderstood energy you could ask for. Creepy. Maybe, but also kind of magical. Just, don't look it in the eye too long. Most birds avoid humans. This one? It's been working with us for over 1,000 years. Meet the Japanese Cormorant, or umiyu, a sleek, black diving bird with a job title, Professional Fisherman. These birds have long, hooked bills, piercing eyes, and wet-look feathers that make them look like they just walked off a catwalk, straight into a river. But what makes them special isn't just their looks, it's their ancient partnership with people. In the traditional Japanese practice called ukai, fishermen use trained cormorants to catch fish, especially sweetfish, or ayu. Here's how it works. A fisherman stands on a wooden boat at night, holding a rope attached to a cormorant's neck. The bird dives into the river, catches a fish, and surfaces. The rope? It's loose enough for the bird to breathe and swallow small fish, but prevents it from swallowing the big ones. Those go to the fisherman. It sounds medieval, but it's still practiced today in places like Gifu and Uji, often with traditional dress, flaming lanterns, and centuries-old boats. The bond between the fisherman and bird is real. Each cormorant has a name, and they're treated with serious care and respect. Outside of this tradition, Japanese cormorants also thrive on their own, diving expertly in harbors and rocky coasts, often popping up suddenly like a feathered submarine. They're not rare, they're not flashy, but they might be the hardest working bird in Japan. In a country known for blending nature, ritual, and craftsmanship, the Japanese cormorant fits right in. It doesn't just fly, it works. And that's our journey through 15 of Japan's most rare, wild, and beautiful birds. If you enjoyed flying through this list, be sure to like, subscribe, and tap the bell for more avian adventures. Did we miss a species you love? Drop it in the comments below. We're always listening, just like a Japanese bush warbler in spring. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next flight.